Yeah. Hi, I'm James Fleming. I'm the writer of Philly-sized Follies, which is coming out soon, I think.
In fact, I have a copy here in my hands,
Ah, brilliant.
which, as you can't actually see my camera, you won't be able to see, but I'll make sure to show you as soon as the interview is over. Um,
Mhm. Yeah. I've seen a picture of the cover from the pre-order thing,
yeah,
and it was really quite exciting to see all of the characters that you've only really vaguely thought of in your head, kind of interpreted by a different artist.
yeah, that's one of
Mm.
my favourite parts of laying out these books is that we get a white Word doc with a bunch of words in, and
Mm.
we get to go and liaise with all of the artists and stuff. Which is sort of why I set up these interviews because I thought it'd be really good to actually talk to people about that process. Um, so
Yeah.
um, yeah, I've got a number of questions here. I'll just dive in, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So the first question is more about you than it is about My Little Pony. It's about when and how you first got interested in role playing games.
I was about 12, I think,
Right.
and I couldn't convince anyone to play with me. Um, so a lot of my early experiences with role-playing games were then done over play-by-post D20 forums in the early days of the internet.
I think Tales of Equestria is like that perfect way of getting people to play role playing games with getting kids to play role playing games with each other and with their parents and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
when did you start writing your own adventures?
So I really started writing uh, RPG adventures quite close to when I started playing. So maybe about 14 years ago now. The DMing role was really what's always appealed to me from the start about
Yeah.
role playing games, and the space for design and creativity that that allows is really exciting. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
okay, so yeah, my next question is: have you played Tales of Equestria?
I have, yeah. So in fact, this kind of ties in to my kind of story with My Little Pony, really, which is when the first season of My Little Pony came out, I watched all of it, but I thought, oh, this is good, but I'm not sure that it's really for me. I think it's high quality entertainment, and certainly I think if I was a bit younger at the time, I think I would have been really into it.
Yeah.
But I was kind of so on it. And then Tales of Equestria came out, and I read through the book, and I thought, wow, this is really good. And I couldn't help but kind of I had a notebook, and I was just jotting down all of these little adventure ideas and little bits and pieces that I thought, oh, this would be really fun to run. And then it got me thinking, well, I wonder if they've already written that adventure and just put it in the TV show, or so I ended up watching all of it after Tales of Equestria came out, mostly because of the RPG.
Right. So you'd say it was Tales of Equestria got you into My Little Pony rather
Yeah,
than the other way
which
around.
it's probably the other way around, the wrong way around. But yeah. Mm.
So, do you have a pony character?
I haven't. I've only ever run it.
Oh, I see. Well, I guess
Yeah.
who's your favourite pony NPC? N Pony C?
Um, I think so. I think my favourite have to go to a pair inside Philly-sized Follies,
Oh,
um, in the Secret of Starfall, called Flint and Vale,
okay.
who are two travelers who the ponies meet along their journey, who help them get to Starfall itself.
Yeah. So, I wanted to ask about your your writing process to kind of work out.
Mm.
Do make yourself a cup of cocoa and go and sit by the window, or
So I can consider it. I tend to be quite workmanlike. I tend to turn off the internet. I write on my computer mostly.
Smart.
And I'll open a few hard copy books of, in this case, Tails of Equestria, and I'll say, I'm going to write until this point of the adventure, and then I kind of sit down and get it done. And once I've done all of the adventure, I come back and give it another second draft and work out any mistakes that I might have made. Because, of course, when you're sitting down writing kind of 1,500, 2,000 words in a single session, you're sometimes going to miss the forest for the trees, especially when it comes to balancing difficulty levels or considering what elements of friendship might be relevant in a certain scenario.
Okay, so it's very methodical, and you have the whole thing planned before you start writing, or do you start? Is it a kind of free flowing, open to change experience?
So I often have a rough 1 or 2 paragraph guideline before I sit down to start writing. Yeah. So I'll tend to have a beginning, a middle, and where I think it should probably end up thematically. Although then you have to write in all of the considerations for the whims of player characters, which we all know.
No player has ever ended an adventure in the way that the Dungeon Master intended them to. That's...
writing adventures for Philly-sized Follies was very different to my normal GMing process. Normally, I will tend to stay at just that 2 paragraph mark for a regular session that I would run with a group. So expanding from that into the full prose of an adventure path was quite difficult at first, but I kind of muscled through it by... I was running a Thursday night game in a very different system at the time.
Yeah.
Fantasy Flight Star Wars. And I kept thinking, what would that party do if I presented them with this problem? I'm trying to write the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really interesting things when we do get the adventures written, is that usually in a role-playing game you can challenge players by sort of saying, oh, there's a dragon, there's a monster, here's a problem that it takes blunt force to overcome. Whereas I'm always amazed in the ways that our writers come up with these interesting kind of diplomatic and social problems. Like, there's a dragon, but what's his motivation?
I think that's actually a really good thing, both as a designer to open up some interesting imaginative space and to stop you from being lazy, but also from a more kind of general storytelling perspective. We already have a lot of stories about fighting things.
So yeah, what was behind the decision to make it episodic, really?
The first thing was, like I mentioned earlier, when I started playing Tails of Equestria, I started noting down all of these ideas, and I thought, actually, loads of these would be really easy. They're 20-minute My Little Pony episodes. They're not
right.
The season finales or the big season openers. And I really felt like what I wanted to do was create adventures that were kind of inspired by those middle episodes that are often some of my favorites. Things like Winter Wrap Up in the first season, or I think my favorite in season 8 was The Sounds of Silence, with the Kirin in it, where there's really a problem to solve that's modelled around one of the elements of harmony. And it's up to the players to puzzle their way around a scenario with no clear antagonists or protagonists, but a very clear conflict.
Yeah, I think that's definitely reflected in all three of the adventures. So the first of these adventures is Sky Arrow's Big Flight. Yeah, do you want to take us through a quick overview while I'll do this?
Yeah, so in Sky Arrow's Big Flight, the pony characters meet Sky Arrow, who is a young Pegasus pony who wants to try out for the Wonderbolts, the Pegasus flying ace team. Unfortunately, whilst practicing before the tryouts, she crashes and injures her wing. And it's up to the players to help Sky Arrow recover from this injury in time to perhaps see her at least get a chance to join the Wonderbolts.
Yeah, what I liked about this setup as well was that it allowed for kind of, if players want to get involved themselves, if they want to be a Wonderbolt, they can, potentially. And in fact, we've included at the back of the book a printout, because during the adventure there's a flyer that they get that says Wonderbolt tryouts tomorrow. So we've included a poster for that you can have printed out and give to your players to really inspire them.
Yeah, the first thing that I knew I wanted to do when I started writing these 3 adventures was I knew I wanted to include an adventure with the Wonderbolts in it. They're one of my favourite things about the show. I don't know, I think there's always something really, really fun, I think, about kind of sports and performance teams.
The next adventure is the Cutie Mark Mystery, which I think is a really interesting challenge that you've set yourself there, because role-playing games famously have problems with mysteries. There's a problematic relationship there and I think it's because they usually focus on the more kind of blunt force solution to a problem, whereas a mystery is nuanced and involves following clues and stuff like that. So yeah, talk to us about those challenges.
Yeah, so I think with a Cutie Mark Mystery, I wanted to approach the mystery solving aspect of the adventure the same way that I would approach a more puzzle-based encounter. Heroes don't get stuck. They might get misled and go down the wrong path, but they never really end up treading water. And with the way that I implemented things in Tails of Equestria, failing a roll to check for a clue doesn't not give you the clue.
Right.
It gives you a little bit less, and it makes you pay for what you get.
The conclusion, I think, is really interesting, where so not only do the player characters have to solve the mystery, but at the end they're left with this question of what do we do now? Which is an incredibly philosophical question to give to players. It's oh yeah, solve a 10,000-year argument about crime and punishment.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Secret of Starfall.
It's perhaps the most adventurous of all 3 of them. After a star falls from the sky, the pony characters are hired by a professor at Canterlot University called Humble Longthink, who requires them to escort him and his scientific materials to the crash site of the star. But when the ponies arrive, they find out that Humble is not the only person who's laid claim to the asteroid. And then they've got to puzzle out who really deserves it and why.
That's very concise. Yeah, my last question is, what would you introduce to the Tails of Equestria range if you had sort of a magic wand, or one, I guess?
So I think there's two things that really stand out to me. One is that I've really, really, really loved a lot of the other adventure paths that have already been put out for Tails of Equestria, particularly those that do take a more D&D-ish fantasy spin on the RPG. So meeting the ponies in the Umbral,
yeah,
and the like, and seeing some flumps and mimics in Equestria was really, really, really fun.
Okay.
Alongside, of course, more pun animals. I always love pun animals like bookworms.
Yeah.
Or
the bookworm is definitely one of my favourites.
Mm-hmm. I think things that have been in My Little Pony that haven't been added into Tales of Equestria yet, the one that's top on my list, though, is I'd love to see playable Kirin.
Yeah. So they're quite a recent addition to the lore.
Yeah.
But yes, I definitely think keep your eyes open. We'll see.
Thanks for watching our video. If you'd like to learn more, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. You can also like and subscribe to be told when we release new videos.